Hello, my friend. I'm truly glad you're here. You know, as we go through different seasons in life, our homes often tell the story of where we've been. They hold memories, comfort, and sometimes, let's be honest, a little too much stuff. And it's not always easy to decide what stays and what should go. Over the years, I've worked with people just like you, mothers, grandmothers, women who have cared for others their whole lives, women who've raised families, managed homes, juggled careers, and now finally have a little time to breathe and reflect. And one thing I've noticed again and again is this. We're often sold the idea that buying the right organizing products will fix everything. That one more storage bin, rack, or drawer will somehow bring us peace. But the truth is, many of those products, they're just clutter in disguise. They promise to simplify life, but they often complicate it even more. So today, I want to gently walk with you through 15 organizing products I would never buy again. And more importantly, I'll share what I've found works better instead. This isn't about being perfect. It's not about judgment. It's about freeing ourselves from the pressure to fix our homes with stuff that doesn't actually help. 1. Plastic drawer cards. Let's begin with something many of us have owned at some point. Those plastic drawer cards. You've probably seen them at big box stores, usually advertised as a quick, easy storage solution. They have wheels, pull-out drawers, and often seem like the perfect fix for papers, crafts, or bathroom supplies. But let's break it down for a moment. These carts are made from lightweight plastic. While they might look organized on day one, it doesn't take long for the drawers to jam, crack, or sag under the weight of even basic items. I've seen it happen time and again. You try to pull one drawer, and suddenly the one below it won't open. Or worse, you end up shoving everything in because it's too much trouble to keep neat. The real issue is that these carts invite clutter. They give us the illusion of being organized without actually helping us sort, limit, or categorize what we own. Instead of choosing what deserves a space, we end up giving everything a spot and then forget what's even inside. For many older adults, bending down to pull open a stubborn plastic drawer becomes not just annoying, but potentially unsafe. The wheels don't always lock properly. The whole thing can tip if you're not careful. And because the plastic is hard to clean and discolors over time, these carts often feel messy, even when they're technically organized. So, what's the alternative? Open shelving. A simple shelf unit, even an affordable one from a discount store, paired with a few clearly labeled bins, does the job better. It keeps everything visible, reachable, and far more stable. Plus, it gives you the freedom to group things in a way that actually makes sense for your life right now. It's not about spending more. It's about choosing something that lasts and makes your daily life just a little bit easier. 2. Honeycomb drawer dividers. At first glance, those honeycomb-style drawer dividers seem like a dream. You know the ones? Neatly arranged little pockets for every pair of socks, every scarf, every small item. The ad shows a drawer so perfect, it looks like it came from a catalog. But here's the truth. In real life, those dividers don't hold up. Literally. They're usually made from thin plastic or fabric, and they collapse under even light pressure. If you're putting laundry away quickly, or if your hands aren't quite as steady as they used to be, it's easy to crush the sides, tear the seams, or end up with everything sliding under the whole insert. Let's contrast that with what actually works better. A soft-sided bin or shallow box inside the drawer gives you the same level of division, but with more flexibility. You can move things around. You can lift the whole bin out if you need to. And if one item is a little bigger than the next, it still fits. More importantly, you're not fighting with a structure that's too rigid for real life. That's a lesson I've learned the hard way. These fancy-looking dividers try to control your things with little cages. But a good organizing system works with how you live, not against it. And for many older women, what matters most isn't a drawer that looks pretty on the internet. It's a drawer that functions smoothly every single day. 3. Pop-up laundry hampers. Picture this. You're carrying a load of laundry through the hallway. The hamper's handles dig into your hands. You try to turn the corner and suddenly, pop! The whole thing collapses. Clothes tumble out. You sigh, bend down to pick them up, and your back gives you that familiar twinge. That's the reality of pop-up laundry hampers. They might fold flat when not in use, but let's be honest. How often do we actually collapse them? Most of the time, they're open, overloaded, and wearing out. The fabric is usually thin. The seams start tearing within months. And the handles? They're almost always the first to go. At a certain point in life, convenience shouldn't mean disposable. It should mean dependable. Instead of a flimsy foldable container that fails you when you need it most, try a solid hamper made of canvas, woven material, or even wood. Something that stands on its own, holds its shape, and doesn't make you feel like you're wrestling an octopus every time you do laundry. It doesn't have to be expensive. It just has to be something you trust. Because your time, your comfort, and your energy are worth more than another broken handle. 4. Toy boxes. Let me tell you what happened the last time my grandkids came over. They ran into the living room, beelined to the toy box in the corner, and within 5 minutes, every single toy was on the floor. Trucks, blocks, dolls, puzzle pieces, all dumped out in a frantic search for that one favorite toy at the bottom. Sound familiar? Toy boxes seem like the easy solution. One big bin, toss everything in. Done. But over time, they become less of a container and more of a dumping ground. Kids can't see what's inside. They dig. They scatter. And when it's time to clean up, everything just goes back in together, no matter what it is. It becomes a cycle of chaos. But here's the shift. When we start seeing toys not just as things, but as part of how children learn, focus, and feel, we realize the system needs to support that. And you, as someone who wants peace in your home, deserve a system that doesn't leave you cleaning up for an hour after the grandkids go home. Cubbies work, low shelves, small labeled bins. When toys have a home they return to, cleanup becomes part of the play. And your space feels less like a toy store exploded and more like a shared, joyful place for both you and the little ones you love. 5. Themed storage bins for kids. Have you ever bought something just because it looked adorable? Maybe it was a little pink bin with a princess on the front, or a blue one with cartoon bears. Perfect for toys, right? The kind of thing you'd imagine your granddaughter squealing over, or your grandson dragging around the house with pride. But here's a gentle question I often ask. Does it still work 5 years later? The reality is, children grow up fast. One day it's teddy bears and trucks, then suddenly it's books, clothes, art supplies. That princess bin? Outgrown? That superhero container? Left behind. And when these themed bins no longer fit their age or their needs, they usually get tossed into the garage, or donated, or forgotten altogether. They're often made from cheaper materials, and because they're so specific, they don't translate into other uses around the home. You're left with something that cost more, lasted less, and didn't grow with the child. Now imagine this. What if we chose simple, neutral bins from the start? A soft gray canvas basket, a natural woven cube. These can live in a nursery, a playroom, or a teenager's closet without needing to be replaced. They're timeless, useful, and blend in with your home beautifully. So, the next time you're tempted by something cute, pause. Ask yourself, will this still work when she's 10? Will I still want it in my home when he's out of the toy phase? Because in this stage of life, we're not just organizing for the moment. We're building systems that last. 6. Wire cube shelving. When I first helped my sister-in-law reorganize her sewing room, she proudly showed me the stack of wire cube shelves she'd assembled herself. They were on sale, she said, and I thought I'd get creative. She spent nearly an afternoon snapping all those metal grids into place with tiny plastic connectors. Her fingers sore by the end. 3 weeks later, 2 of the cubes had collapsed. One had a sewing machine foot pedal sticking out from a broken side. She was frustrated, not because of the mess, but because she'd tried so hard to do it right. This story is not hers alone. Those wire cubes look modular, customizable, even modern, but they're flimsy. They shift with the slightest bump. Small items fall through the gaps, and unless they're perfectly balanced, they lean or fall apart over time. Assembly is often time-consuming, and once built, they're hard to move without falling to pieces. And here's the commentary I always offer gently. Sometimes saving $10 up front costs us peace and time down the line. If you need cubby storage, even budget options like Closet Made or IKEA offer sturdy units that don't wobble when you walk past. Add bins, baskets, or boxes that match your style, and you've got a system that's built to last. You don't need shelves that look like puzzles. You need ones that bring stability, beauty, and calm to your space. 7. Pre-filled spice racks. I remember the first spice rack I ever bought. It was one of those carousel types. Came with 20 little jars, all neatly labeled. Italian seasoning? Turmeric, marjoram, bay leaves. I didn't even know what to cook with half of them. But it looked so organized, so grown up. I proudly placed it on the kitchen counter. Fast forward 5 years. I'd used maybe 5 of those spices regularly. The rest were faded, crusted, and untouched. Some I had to look up just to remember what they were. The rack took up valuable counter space, and yet I hesitated to get rid of it. Why? Because I'd already spent the money, and it felt organized even if it wasn't useful. Maybe you've had something similar. We often buy systems that look good but don't reflect how we actually live. Most people rotate through 6 to 8 spices, maybe a few more if you love cooking. But a pre-filled rack doesn't care what you use. It only cares what looks complete. Today, I keep a small tray inside a drawer with the spices I actually reach for. Cinnamon, cumin, paprika, garlic powder. Nothing fancy, just what fits my meals. It's neater, simpler, and more honest. You don't need 20 spices if you only use 7. You don't need a spinning tower if you prefer a quiet drawer. Your kitchen should serve you, not the other way around. 8. Magnetic spice jars. It started with a great idea. Use magnets, free up space, make the spices easy to see and grab. I was sold. I bought the set, mounted it to the side of the fridge. Neat little jars with clear lids and shiny labels. I was excited. This was going to change my cooking game. But then reality crept in. The magnets weren't strong enough. The jars slid, tipped, sometimes fell when the door closed too hard. Spices got stuck in the lid, so when I opened one, coriander flew across the counter. And I noticed something else. I wasn't cooking any differently. I was just cleaning up more often. It took me a while to admit it. But I'd bought into an idea, not a solution. There's nothing wrong with trying something new, but when something adds more work to your day, even if it looks clever, it's okay to let it go. Now I keep my spices in simple glass jars inside a small basket. When I cook, I pull the whole basket out. It's not flashy, but it's steady, reliable, and it works. Sometimes the best system isn't the one that saves space. It's the one that saves peace of mind. 9. Spinning desk organizers. They spin, they swivel, and they look like the answer to every cluttered desk. You've probably seen them at craft stores or office supply shops. Circular caddies filled with compartments for scissors, pens, glue sticks, paper clips, and every little thing in between. At first, it feels like a miracle. Everything in one place, easy to access, problem solved. But here's what happens over time. The compartments don't fit what you actually need. Some are too shallow. Others are oddly shaped. You start tossing things in just to fill them, not because it's useful. And slowly, this miracle organizer becomes a clutter collector. A carousel of mismatched, unused items you have to spin through just to find a pen that works. The spinning motion itself, once fun, becomes a nuisance, especially if your hands aren't as steady as they once were. One wrong turn, and something topples. It's more motion than function. Here's what works better. Keep it simple. Use small cups, jars, or even recycled candle holders for your most used items. If you like the spinning idea, place them on a lazy Susan base. This way, you're in control of what goes where, and not trying to make your tools fit into someone else's idea of organization. Sometimes, the best systems are the ones you build from what you already have. That little mason jar for your favorite pen? That's organization. That teacup holding paper clips? That's function with a personal touch. Forget the fancy spin. Focus on what actually helps you breathe easier at your desk. 10. Coat trees. Imagine walking into a cozy front hallway. There, tucked neatly in the corner, stands a tall wooden coat tree. It feels traditional, maybe even nostalgic. You picture a place to hang your favorite cardigan, a raincoat, your purse when you get home. Now fast forward 6 months. That once tidy coat tree, it's now drowning in jackets, scarves, tote bags, maybe even an umbrella or two. It wobbles if you touch it. The base is lost under a pile of shoes. And heaven help you if you try to get the coat in the back. It's a full production. This is what often happens with coat trees. They start off elegant, but quickly become overloaded. They take up precious floor space and rarely hold items in a way that's easy to reach. More often than not, you end up pulling one thing off and having 2 more fall down. And if you've got mobility concerns, or even just tired hands, trying to lift items over hooks at eye level or higher isn't as easy as it used to be. Here's a gentler option. Wall hooks. Mounted at staggered heights, they offer more hanging space than you'd expect. They keep the floor clear. And they're easier to use for both you and any guests or grandchildren who visit. Wall hooks can be charming, stylish, and, best of all, practical. Because getting in the door should feel like a welcome, not a juggling act. 11. Closet gadget hangers. Have you ever bought one of those closet hangers that promises to hold 6 things in the space of 1? Maybe it was a tiered pants hanger, or one of those chain-style gadgets that lets shirts cascade down. You thought, this will double my closet space. And who doesn't want that? But then the reality sets in. Every time you try to lift one item, you end up lifting 3. The hangers swing around. The weight gets uneven. Taking one pair of pants feels like playing tug-of-war with a metal snake. And instead of saving space, you just avoid using the things you've hung. At some point, you have to ask yourself, is this actually making life easier? What I've found, time and again, is that these gadgets add layers of complexity to a space that should feel calm and easy. Closets don't need to be packed to the brim. They need to be clear, simple, and inviting to use. One upgrade I do recommend: velvet hangers. The good ones, not the ones from the dollar store that snap in your hand. They're slim, they keep clothes from slipping, and they genuinely help you see what you have without adding bulk. Because in this season of life, getting dressed should feel like a quiet joy, not a frustrating puzzle. 12. Hanging fabric shelves. There was a time I thought hanging fabric shelves were genius. I picked one up for my closet, 6 soft compartments I could use for sweaters, purses, or folded clothes. It felt organized, minimal, clean. At first. But as the weeks went by, I noticed the fabric began to sag. One shelf tilted more than the others. Heavier items made the entire thing lopsided. I tried to fix it, reinforce it, even empty a shelf to balance the weight. It didn't work. Eventually, I realized what had happened. I was treating a temporary tool like a permanent solution, and my closet paid the price. That realization shifted something for me. There's a time and place for quick fixes, travel, short-term moves, maybe a college dorm. But in a long-term home, you need systems that respect your space and your routines, not something that droops, stretches, or gives way under the weight of your daily life. I took that hanging organizer down, replaced it with a small set of solid shelves. And you know what? I instantly felt calmer every time I opened the closet. It wasn't about perfection. It was about trust, trusting that the things holding my life together could actually hold. 13. Clear plastic shoe drawers. Clear plastic shoe drawers seem like a clever idea at first. They promise a tidy closet, easy access, and a way to see all your shoes at a glance. Everything neatly stacked, each pair in its own home, safe from dust and damage. If you've ever struggled with a messy entryway or a pile of shoes at the bottom of your closet, it's easy to think, this is the solution I've been waiting for. But here's what tends to happen, especially over time. Those drawers might slide easily the first few weeks, but soon they start to stick. The little doors that are supposed to pop open become loose, or worse, refuse to stay shut. You pull on one pair and knock the whole stack off balance. The structure, often made from thin plastic, begins to bow in the middle. The tower leans, and before long, the shoes you wanted to protect are right back on the floor. Only now they're surrounded by broken plastic parts. Now let's consider a different picture. Imagine a low, open wooden or metal shoe rack. Just a few simple rows, nothing fancy. You can sit comfortably nearby, slip on your shoes without having to dig or bend too low, and everything you own is in plain sight. It doesn't hide anything. It honors what you have. This isn't about sacrificing beauty for function. It's about embracing simplicity that works for you every day. Because at this point in life, ease and stability matter more than the thrill of cleverness. We deserve systems that support, not frustrate, our routines. And when something falls apart too soon, makes daily tasks harder, or simply doesn't live up to its promise, it's okay to say, this just doesn't serve me anymore. Sometimes the more open option really is the most freeing one. 14. Oversized produce keepers. Let me take you back to a moment in my own kitchen, not too long ago. I had just come back from the grocery store, arms full of fresh fruits and vegetables. There were shiny red apples, vibrant green lettuce, plump grapes, and a couple of zucchinis I promised myself I'd finally use. I had also just purchased those fancy produce containers I'd been seeing everywhere. Thick plastic boxes with vented lids, little moisture trays, and even replaceable filters. It felt like the right move, a smart move. I stacked them proudly in my refrigerator thinking, this is how organized people live. But by the end of that first week, something unexpected happened. I found myself rearranging the entire fridge just to fit those bulky bins. The milk no longer fit where it used to. Leftovers had to be balanced on top of things. I had to lift and move one bin to get to another. And in the process, I stopped reaching for the fruit altogether. What started as a system designed to help me use my produce ended up being the very thing that kept me from seeing it. One morning, I pulled out the strawberry box and realized the fruit had gone soft, forgotten, hidden. I wasn't eating healthier. I was just storing food better and wasting it all the same. That's when I asked myself a question I now share with clients. Are you organizing to feel more in control or to actually live more easily? I went back to basics. Now I wash produce when I get home, dry it gently, and keep it in open bowls or simple glass containers. I see it. I eat it. And my fridge breathes again. Those fancy bins made me feel productive, but they didn't align with how I truly live. And that's the difference between organizing for appearance and organizing for peace. You deserve the kind that gives you peace. 15. Smart storage labeling systems. When did organizing our homes start to feel like managing a warehouse? That's the question I found myself asking after visiting a client who proudly showed me her new smart storage system. She had spent hours inputting the contents of every bin in her garage into an app. Each bin had a printed QR code. Scan it, and the app would tell you exactly what's inside, down to the Christmas wreath in bin number 8, back row, shelf 3. It was, in a way, impressive. But here's what I gently asked her. When was the last time you opened those bins at all? She paused, then admitted that she hadn't touched most of them in over a year. This is the hidden truth behind high-tech organizing. It often becomes a way to avoid the harder work of deciding what to keep and what to let go. If we need a digital map to remember where things are, maybe we're not just organizing, we're overcompensating. And I get it. Letting go isn't easy, especially when things carry memories or were bought with hard-earned money. But your home is not a storage facility. It's a place for rest, connection, and reflection. I often encourage clients, and maybe I'll encourage you now, to try something simpler. Before investing in another system, open one bin, just one. Look inside. Ask yourself, do I use these things? Do I love them? Do they still fit the life I'm living today? If the answer is no, you've already made progress, and you don't need an app to tell you that. Your peace of mind is more valuable than a perfectly labeled bin. Let your home be a place where you remember what matters, not just where it's stored. You've made it this far, and I want to say thank you, not just for listening, but for allowing yourself to consider something that isn't always easy. Letting go. We live in a world that constantly tells us to buy more, store more, organize more. But here's a quiet truth I've learned. Peace doesn't come from more shelves or more bins. It comes from less, from deciding what really matters now and gently releasing what doesn't. At this stage of life, you don't need anyone's permission to create a home that works for you, a home that's easier to move through, that holds only the things that support your days and lift your spirit. So if any part of today's conversation resonated with you, I hope you'll take one small step, clear out a drawer, rethink a shelf, let go of something that's no longer serving you. And in doing so, make room for comfort, for calm, for the life you want to live now.